I think we're set up for a really strong rally into year end.
So it's no surprise that our boy Tom Lee, he is giga bullish on the stock market into year end for 2025. We get that. That's no surprise that Tom Lee is bullish, guys. We get it. But the big problem is this. Yes, 2025 might end very well, but 2026, he is saying that we might see a similarity to what happened in 2025. Everybody remember those Liberation Day tariffs where the market fell like 25% in just a few months? Yes. That might happen again in 2026. So I'm going to roll some clips here of Tom Lee in his most recent interview. We're going to go through the good side, the bad side of it, and really break down everything that matters. So here we go.
So you had been saying, let's say a few weeks ago that we could get some choppiness in the first part of November, but you were still kind of bullish looking beyond that. What, in your view, has the market been contending with in recent weeks? What did we learn, and how does it set us up for the outlook here?
Yeah, well, I think the market's been struggling with the same things that it's grappled with all year, which is a monetary policy direction that's not completely clear. As you know, the odds of a December cut have really jumped around from as high as 60 down to 30, back to 80. And the second is, of course, policy volatility, because the administration does make proclamations and statements that are sometimes head fakes but confuse investors, and it's all resulted in really suppressed enthusiasm for stocks. Sentiment has been bearish.
And then that, led to a 5+% pullback in the S&P 500. A lot of the more aggressive parts of the market took on a lot more pain than that. Where does it leave us in your mind? I mean, as I mentioned, 4 days, this market has barely even flinched at pretty much all the hurdles that were along the way. The moving averages, we got above last Thursday's high. We know it's kind of an upside bias the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and the Friday after. But beyond that, where do we go?
I think we're set up for a really strong rally into year end. And I know we just came out of a pretty terrible grind. I've talked to a lot of PMs that have said it's one of their worst 6-week periods ever in their career. So we know people have lost money, they've de-risked. But we know into year end we have the positive seasonals, especially given how strong the May to October was. It's really a 5 to 6 chance that we're going to be up 5% into year end.
So a 5 out of 6 chance that the market's going to be up and to the right going into year end 2025. Is it possible? Yes, of course. But we simply don't know. Like, Tom Lee is the guy that everybody likes to follow because he's very bullish. He puts hope in the back of people's heads that, yes, the market's going to go up and to the right. And usually that's what the market does do. But surprisingly, like I said in the beginning of this video, Tom Lee does say some pretty bearish things about 2026. So again, while 2025 might be good, 2026 might actually be very bad. And as you guys all know, coming to this channel, we're all here to make money. I'm an investor, you're an investor. We just want to dissect this information and figure out what actually matters to make money. So we're going to break down what Tom Lee says about 2026 in just a second, because I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to capitalize, and I don't want any of you guys to miss out on that. So let's roll back into it. We'll see a little bit more about what Tom Lee has to say, and then we'll talk about 2026.
Right.
The second is monetary policy, I think, is going to shift dovish. Even if Fed Chair Powell is hawkish, we know it waiting in the wings is now a shadow Fed that's dovish. The third is we know sentiment is going to have to chase this rally because 80% of fund managers are trailing their benchmark. And then I think the fundamental story is pretty intact. As we're doing work into next year, and I think earnings visibility is going to be really good. So I don't think I'm questioning if earnings are peaking. It's more just did stocks price in and correct enough.
So did stocks correct enough? Pretty interesting from Tom Lee saying, did stocks go down enough? The guy that is one of the most bullish analysts that covers the entire stock market, he is always bullish, and he's just saying right now, did stocks correct down enough? In my opinion, no. I do think the stock market is still a little bit overvalued. Yes, there is some companies that are individually undervalued, but overall, the entire market, the S&P and the NASDAQ, I do think that we do need to correct a little bit lower. Does that mean that it's guaranteed to happen and we have to correct lower? No. But I do think it would be healthy if we correct about 10% more. So while we might get this year-end rally that's going to be very strong, if we do get a negative catalyst in the beginning of 2026, it is very likely that we're going to see a 20% correction in 2026. Tomley's going to talk about this in just a second.
Now, you've been, I think, pointing toward, let's say, 7,000 in the S&P by year end. But a year ago, you also thought we'd hit 7,000 in the first half of this year. So what happened along the way? And I guess what might you think about in terms of impediments looking into 2026?
Yes, I mean, we're almost through this year. And
Yeah.
I'd say looking back, this was 5 years of history compressed into 1 year because we had a major bear market, the biggest tariff hikes ever. And that, of course, killed any hope of any 7,000 in the first half.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on really quick. We did not have a very bad bear market in 2025. A bad bear market is what happens in 2008 and 1999 where the market falls 30, 40, even 50%. We saw the S&P 500 fall roughly 20% in April of 2025. That is nothing. So I do not consider that a very bad bear market. It's just a healthy correction that happens in the market. And a catalyst, which was, yes, very high tariffs, which highest tariffs of all time, that was a bad catalyst. But the market did not have a very bad bear market. I just want to kind of clearly air on that for you guys.
But miraculously, stocks went into a waterfall decline and recovered every single point of that decline symmetrically. So it really speaks to the resilience. But I guess as we're thinking about next year, I bet you it's going to be very similar in the sense that we'll get a policy shock, maybe whether it's monetary or from the administration, it could lead to a big drawdown of 20% again.
Yeah.
But it's a replay of this year. And maybe we've now had 20% bear markets in 5 years. I mean, that's a lot of history compressed into a 5-year period.
Again, a 20% correction is not the end of the world. If we get it, great. We're just going to simply capitalize. Like, I always have my 7-figure account oriented in a way to win if we have upside and, of course, be able to capitalize if we have downside and, of course, survive the downturns. Because if your portfolio is so leveraged out right now to the wazoo that if we get a 20% downturn, you're going to get wiped out and get a margin call, please adjust that right now while the market's still close to all-time highs. But what I'm getting at here is that Tom Lee, again, one of the most bullish people in the entire world on the stock market, is literally saying that 2026 is likely to be a repeat of 2025, and we are likely going to get a 20% drawdown correction. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? In my opinion, I put it kind of like at a coin toss, to be honest with you, because nobody really knows. And if Trump wants to send some negative catalyst through the economy and try to shock the market lower, like, sure, that could totally happen, but we just simply don't know what's going to happen. And at a time that right now where the market valuations, they're not a bubble, but they are a little bit on the high side, if we get a negative catalyst like tariffs again or something else that we're not even thinking about, yes, extremely possible this market could go down 20% for 2026. So again, I can't stress this enough. While the market is very close to all-time highs, take a look at your portfolio. Make sure you are okay to ride this stuff down 20% for the S&P and the NASDAQ. And if you hold individual companies, usually those companies have a higher beta than the S&P and the NASDAQ, meaning if the S&P goes down 20%, you might go down 30 or even 40%. You have to be okay with all that stuff. All right, let's dive back in because Tom says some pretty crazy things. And I know we don't talk about Bitcoin a lot on this channel, but the things that he says about Bitcoin and how it could potentially predict what the market's going to do, it is honestly really interesting. So let's dive into that.
Now, you mentioned obviously the confusion over the path for the Fed as contributing to this recent pullback, as well as some policy flux in there. What role did the violent shakeout in crypto have on all that? Because a week ago, that's all we were talking about was Bitcoin can't stop going down. The NASDAQ wants to follow it, or people are concerned about how that's going to knock other things loose in other financial assets. So it's stabilized, but it's not exactly sort of participating to the upside in this bounce.
Yes. So crypto had been a leading indicator for actually most of the last 5 years. But on October 10th, crypto had what I would call Armageddon, a flash event. But it led to a liquidation that was never seen in the 15 years history of Bitcoin. About a third of the market makers went out of business that day. Almost 2 million accounts went to zero.
Yeah.
And it was because of a pricing error, what I would call a glitch. It led to what they call auto deleveraging.
You've definitely made that case that it definitely seems as if there was something in the kind of market maker functioning that got fouled. Yeah. Now, that being said, the reason you can have all those accounts auto-liquidated is because there were that many accounts with that much leverage that got Bitcoin up to where it was, above 120.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so it's not as if it happened in a vacuum.
Yeah. So in a way, it means crypto represents really a very precise measurement of risk appetite because
Yeah.
there's so much more leverage. And that got wiped out.
Right.
That last time it happened in 2022, it took 8 weeks before people sort of touch their toes back in. I
Right.
think that's where we are. We're near a bottom.
So that's a really interesting stat that 1 out of 3 market makers in Bitcoin got wiped out. On top of that, millions of accounts that hold Bitcoin got wiped out also. They're down to a value of 0. Why is that? Well, in my opinion, and not talking crap on crypto, but many crypto investors are more retail investors that don't really have a clue what's actually going on. All they see is that the price of Bitcoin is going up, and their friend at work probably said, yo, you could go buy leverage call options and make 10 extra money or 100 extra money or 1,000 extra money versus just buying Bitcoin straight up. So while you could make a crap ton of money if it does go up, if it goes down, you could also get wiped out really, really quick. So while Tom Lee called this a glitch in the system, it was just simply deleveraging coming out of the system. It's really that simple.
I guess we got to be more specific in terms of AI, or do you think that the full leadership of the first half of this year, where the OpenAI, Orbit, and everything else can participate?
Yeah. Well, I know stocks have been sort of trading pole position,
Yeah.
NVIDIA and Alphabet. But to me, the bigger story arc remains that AI is a mega trend. There's a lot of resources and spending, and it's a big contributor to growth. And we know there's a shortage of both power and silicon. So I do think it's going to ultimately move in the next 12 months kind of as one cohort. I don't think valuation sensitivity is as important as people think. We're actually studying this now. We're going to be publishing it soon. But if you look back 10 years ago, the most expensive stocks at the end of 2015 continue to be the best stocks over the next 5 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I don't even know if it's really a valuation story in terms of what's taken a step back. It's a matter of, kind of who's got the current lead.
Yeah, whose model
or the
works
clearest
better.
path or something like that. Yeah. Cameron, in terms of the macro, I mean, everyone has been able to say, okay, we had this rhetorical dovish pivot from Fed members. We can now price in a cut. You mentioned that it looks like we have a glide path toward 3% in short-term rates. Are those still going to be insurance cuts? Are those still going to be like the economy doesn't really need it, but we could use it because we just had the Beige Book come out, and there was a lot of commentary about softness in labor markets and companies finding ways to do more with fewer people.
Yeah, that is the biggest question, because cutting because you can is a very different story for risk assets than cutting because you should. If the context of the cuts is because the labor market needs the support, that the economy needs the support, what you would see within things like equities or credit is a lot of weakness because equity valuations would be too high and earnings estimates would be too high. But if you're cutting because you're just trying to get to neutral because you don't want to be too tight in the future, that's when equities can very much rally and enjoy it. Now, the Beige Book has been painting a very sour picture about the economy for quite some time, as has all soft data been painting a much more sour picture about the economy. So we continue to go back to this notion of what is the equity market telling us about things like the U.S. consumer. Equal weight discretionary versus staples is still in an uptrend. So to us, the equity market is still arguing that the aggregate consumer, of course, with big weights to high income consumers, is still in a fairly good position. So we'll continue to monitor that.
So yeah, I think she hit it right on the nail with AI. Like, AI is becoming so good that companies are saying we're going to be able to do more work with less people. That could be bad for the economy and really bad for the labor market. So the Fed is probably going to be forced into a position of cutting interest rates even more than what we actually expect to try to support the labor market. But what I think is going to continue to happen in the short term is that, yes, the economy is slowing down a little bit. The labor market's slowing down a little bit too. Nothing is horrible right now, but if we do get a big bag negative catalyst that could potentially have companies laying people off, that would be really bad, because once those people get laid off, and as we've been seeing on continued jobless claims, those people on continued jobless claims are having a harder time finding work because there's less new job postings out there, because these companies realize that they could use AI to be able to replace these people when they get fired or retire, get laid off or quit, whatever. So there's going to be major implications for the labor market out here. So while I do think that 2025 is going to be some sort of benign year closing it out, 2026, in my opinion, is going to be very, very volatile. So my portfolio right now, I'm allocated in a way to capitalize on upside and on downside. I'm always allocated that way. And at a time when the market valuations are a little bit higher, I have a little bit less leverage, I have a little bit less risk. And when I say leverage, like I'm not really leverage anything. I have zero margin right now, but more so like sold puts and long calls, stuff like that. I have less of that right now because the overall market is a little bit hot. If we get a dip lower, guess what? I'm going to capitalize. But if we don't, guess what? I'm going to ride it up even more than what the market's doing. So either way, I'm positioned to win. Okay. Hope you got value from this video. I'm going to end it here. I did make a 3-video series. I'll link it right here. If you're a new investor, how to scale your day job, how to build your portfolio, and how to use stock options in the right way. My exact system of how I make over $30,000 per month on average. Watch video number 1 right here. You got to watch all 3 of them, and I'll see you guys there.